Now, don't get me wrong, on the whole, FPL have done a good job with player pricing this year. I do think they've got a few wrong though, and these players are just too cheap. Alright then, first on the list I've gone for Jarrod Bowen. Now, compared to his performance last year, you'd suggest 7 million was a good price, but I don't think last year was a fair reflection on how good of a footballer Jarrod Bowen is. I really do think he can quite easily re-find that form of the 21-22 season. It was quite obvious to me at least that West Ham went through a proper dip where the whole squad was underperforming towards the sort of middle end of the season. Towards the end, they really picked things up. Bowen did too. His underlying numbers improved a lot, and obviously he scored the winning goal in the Conference League final. And I just think all those things together mean that West Ham are going to kick on next season. Obviously, they sold their best player in Declan Rice, but I think there are players out there they can replace him with quite easily and then spend that money on actually improving their team as well. I think they're going to come out of that situation better off than when they actually had Rice in their team for, you know, the amount of money they got for it. And looking at his season in 21-22, played 36 games, 12 goals, 10 assists. That's a really fantastic record. And just in general as well, he's absolutely nailed to start for West Ham. Might even be taking the penalties. I know he's probably gone down a pecking order a little bit because he missed a few in that 21-22 season. But, you know, Antonio looks like he could be off to Saudi Arabia. Ben Rama isn't a solid starter. Rice has obviously left. Those were taking penalties ahead of Bowen. So, yeah, we'll see what happens next season. But yeah, just in general, he starts every game that he's fit for, including, you know, last season when they were in Europe still. So I think he's a fantastic option for the price. And to be honest, based on that performance of a couple of seasons ago, he should be more expensive. Now, another £7 million player in Raheem Sterling. Now, for me, I think if he starts for Chelsea and returns anything like the numbers he got at Man City, he's ridiculously underpriced. I mean, he got 134 returns in 225 Premier League games for Man City. Obviously didn't play 90 minutes a game when he was there. Some of them were coming off the bench. Some of them, you know, reduced minutes because he got subbed early. That's 0.7 returns per 90 minutes, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And if he can find any of that sort of form in the Chelsea team, I think he's going to be an unbelievable option. And 7 million is an absolute steal for what he can provide. Yeah, if he can re-find that form, looking at that 21-22 season, 18 returns in 30 games played, slightly underperformed his XG and expected assists as well. You know, around 0.7 expected returns per 90. If he can reach that level playing for Chelsea, and to be honest, I think Pochettino is going to be playing him regularly to do that. Havertz, Mount and Ziyech look like they're, well, two of them have already gone. Ziyech looks like he's leaving. Oh, I think it's written in the stars for Sterling to have a great season, and I think 7 million is too cheap for him. Now, this one comes as no surprise, but I think of all the players in the game that have been underpriced, Saka has genuinely been underpriced by the most. In my opinion, he's one of the best players in the Premier League now. He's absolutely nailed in that Arsenal starting lineup. He's, in my opinion, going to play more minutes than the other Arsenal midfielders, you know, the likes of Odegaard, who's priced the same. Martinelli is only 0.5 less. He's got no competition in that position, in my opinion. And he's on the penalties, obviously. Jorginho is in the squad now, but I don't think Jorginho is going to be a solid starter, which makes me think Saka's going to keep the pens. In my opinion, he's better than any of the other Arsenal midfielders, like I've said. In reality, if I were to price him, I'd put him somewhere at 9.5 million. I really do think he's of that level of player, so I think it speaks for itself that he's underpriced, really. The fact that over 50% of the game have picked him. Those returns last season, if he can get 25 returns in 38 games again this season, 8.5 million is an absolute steal. And to be honest, I think he's going to kick on and get even more. So Saka, yeah, it's unbelievable value. And to be honest, if you don't have him in your team, I don't know what you're doing. Okay, next up, another one in Bruno Fernandes. Now, a couple of seasons ago, he was priced at £12 million, and now he's dropped all the way down to 8.5 million. Looking at his stats last season, 8 goals, 8 assists, you know, his price sort of reflects that level of returns. But when you look at the underlying expected data, he had 9 expected goals compared to actually getting 8, then 16.7 expected assists compared to the 8 that he actually got. Now, underperforming your expected assists is not necessarily down to Bruno Fernandes, it's down to the rest of the team finishing off their chances. And if Man United, you know, they sign a striker in the transfer window, I can see those expected assists being turned into actual assists in Bruno Fernandes having an absolutely stellar season. You know, if he did get those 9 goals and 16 assists this season, 8.5 million is an absolute steal. And Another point which I think goes sort of underrated about Bruno Fernandes is just his availability. And last season he definitely played through some injuries, but he is absolutely nailed, probably one of the most nailed players in the Premier League. And now he's club captain as well. I think that only adds to the fact he's going to start every game. And when he does play, he plays 90 minutes as well. He very rarely gets an early sub. And as we all know, he takes the penalties and he's one of the best penalty takers in the world. So I just think there's so many upsides to Bruno Fernandes, and how FPL have worked him out to be 8.5 million, I'll never know. And finally, I don't think this is like a massive mistake, but the returns that Gabriel got last season, right? I think he's a £6 million defender. Like, genuinely, if I was pricing him up, I'd probably make him 6 million. He should be at 5 million in everyone's teams. Arsenal have a fantastic run of fixtures to start the season off. He was the 4th highest scoring defender in the game last season, scored more points than Andy Robertson, who is 1.5 million less than. He had the best expected goals of any defender last season. He was expected to score 5 goals, and playing at centre-back, all of that comes from set pieces and headers. And the opening fixtures for Arsenal are against teams, I think 6 of the opening 7 fixtures are against teams with the top 6 worst expected goals conceded from set pieces. Essentially what that means is the opening fixtures are against literally the worst teams in the league for defending set pieces, and that's where Gabriel's goals come from. So for that run of fixtures, I mean, to not have him in your team, I think is a bit of a miss, really. And at 5 million, if he can return 2 or 3 goals, 2 or 3, 4 clean sheets in that period, it's going to be ridiculous value. And I think they really have made a mistake on his price. The only thing I would say, obviously this wasn't factored into the pricing because it was only, well, barely even a rumour at the time. Now Arsenal have signed Timber. He will get in the team at some point. I think Jurrien Timber is too good of a player to be sitting on the bench for Arsenal. The question remains, where does he play? He's got obviously the ability to play right back and centre back. Gabriel being left-footed, I think, saves him really, because Arteta's always going to want a left-footed centre back on that left-hand side, whereas Timber, if he does play centre back, he's going to play on the right, which I believe is where Saliba plays, or right back where Ben White has nailed his spot. So I think he's probably the safer of the 2 Arsenal centre-backs from rotation as well. All of that put together, 5 million is ridiculously underpriced in my opinion. And that's the end of the video. The idea behind this really talking about the underpriced players in the game. Essentially, if a player is underpriced, that means they are a good option for the money. And 5 of these players anyway, I would be surprised if they didn't make their way into everyone's team at some point during the season. I absolutely think the likes of Jarrod Bowen and Raheem Sterling are going to find a run of form where they become really good options in FPL. And the other guys I spoke of, the likes of Saka, Bruno Fernandes and Gabriel, I mean, I've seen them in pretty much every draft I've seen on Twitter. So yeah, I think these are literally 5 of the best options in the game, with maybe the first 2 being better options as we get through the season and know that they're trusted in the starting lineup. But yeah, I thought that'd be an interesting video anyway. Let me know in the comments if there are any underpriced players that I might have missed. Yeah, I'll be interested to hear it. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating and subscribe to the Golden Goal channel just here if you want to see more videos. And I'll catch you in the next one.